You're just a girl. I'm just a girl. We're all just girls, okay? And as a girl, we only have about 2 solid good weeks out of the month to make sure that we get certain things done. So the question then becomes, how do I stay disciplined and productive when my energy is basically non existent half of the month? That is the conversation that I want to have today. Specifically, I want to talk about my own journey and experience when it comes to just the high and low energy cycle. I also want to talk about cycle syncing because I feel like that is such a little bit of a taboo or controversial topic within the Christian community. And I feel like let's talk about it because I feel like the controversy is just unnecessary. And then finally, I want to talk about how we can incorporate high and low habits, routines, schedules into our lives so that we can still be productive and disciplined in our low energy days as well. Now, although this conversation is kind of giving a little TMI, I mean, just a little bit, I still think it's going to be very fruitful and very productive, and it's going to help you be able to do all the things that God has called you to do. So, with that said, girl, my name is Rose Floreston, and I want to welcome you back to callgirls.com. So, like in every episode, I think it's really important to kind of set the context up so that we have some type of idea around why we're driving this conversation. And this is coming off of the last few weeks of my own life, how just being in the menstrual phase of my period really drains me, depletes me. Not just the menstrual phase, but the luteal phase right before that, and then going into menstrual. That season of life is very depleting. And it only really started picking up for me the older that I got. That's when I really started to notice how volatile my energy is as I've gotten older. And what's interesting about that is that it's not just the emotions that take a toll, where one day I'm happy, one day I'm sad, the other day I'm irritated and I'm anxious, all of these types of things. But it's also affecting the things that I have to do on a day to day basis, from content creation to being in school full time to managing my household and things like that, to showing up and being a wife to my husband. All of these things are impacted and affected by the volatility of my cycle. So, because of that, I thought it would be super important for me to pay attention to it, listen to what's happening in my body, and figure out a way to work with the energy that I have so that I am not a monster half of the month and that I'm still productive and disciplined in managing and stewarding all of the things that I'm responsible in this season of my life. And that is where I came across the conversation around cycle syncing. Now, here's where I want to discuss the controversy around it a little bit. And I don't think that necessarily that the controversy around it is super duper loud, but I think that people misjudge it because the conversation around cycle syncing is found in a lot of the new age practices, the new age conversations, and things like that. We just are not interested as Christians in mixing things up. This is why we don't participate in yoga. This is why we don't believe in the Hindu version of meditation and things like that. We are very distinguished in what we believe in our spiritual practices. And so the moment certain conversations start floating around in that realm, we tend to completely avoid it. However, I think that there is the spiritual side to things, and then there is the scientific evidence of things. And scientifically, it has been proven that we as women go through literal cycles. And if you assess yourself and take a moment to pay attention to your energy, your temperament, your mood, your emotions throughout a month, you can generally see that there is changes that are constantly happening. And so I think that the controversy stems from the spiritual aspect of these things. And I think that in order for us to do what the Bible tells us, which is to steward our bodies well, to give our bodies as a living sacrifice to the Lord, which is our reasonable service, we need to understand our bodies. We can use science as a means to understand how we function as women and for us to know what our limitations are or where we need different levels of support in our lives so that we can still show up and do the things that the Lord has called us to. And so, by the way, you already know I have my little notebook here ready to go. So I think scientifically, it is really good to pay attention to these particular things because your hormones are literally changing throughout each phase. Therefore, your energy is directly affected. Now, I will say this, right? It's important to know how your cycle flows. Pay attention to how your body is responding with the different hormone changes that are happening within you so that you could be a better steward of the responsibilities and the roles that the Lord has given you. However, don't do too much, okay? There are certain people who overdo it where they're using it as a means of excuse to not have some sort of responsibilities for some of the things that the Lord has called them to. However, I don't want you to do that, right? I don't want you to use this as a crutch. I don't want you to use this as a means for excuse. I want you to use it to your advantage because I have found that in using it to my advantage, I have shown up so much more effectively in so many of the other areas of my life. And I think that if you pay attention to the means of which your cycle flows, your hormones fluctuate, and all these types of things, you will find that you can be a little bit more diligent, disciplined, productive in your day to day life when you put high energy tasks and responsibilities during your high energy days and the more low effort things during your low energy days. And we're going to get into that. Like I said, I am personally not in the business of doing too much, overdoing it, trying to track all of the little nitty gritty details. I don't think it's that necessary. I just think that it is important to pay attention. Maybe even like have a little notebook for 1 month, 1 month or 2 months. Just track how are you feeling week to week? What is changing? And what do you feel like doing on those weeks? Maybe even adding like, okay, is there something that I can change in my diet to help me during this time? Is there something in my schedule that I need to move around in order to help me during this time? Like all of these things that you can take into consideration without making this become a full blown like hindrance or crutch to you being productive and disciplined in your life. Okay. So another little side note that I want to add here is that your body, and this is for Christian girls, your body is not your flesh. Okay. There's a difference between your physical body and your flesh. Just because you are incorporating cycle syncing into your daily life does not mean that you are subduing yourself to your flesh. Your flesh is what prompts you to sin. However, your body is meant to still be honored because it is a temple of the Holy Spirit. Okay. Two different things. So, in your mind, I don't want you to kind of mix those things up and you do yourself a disservice in thinking that cycle syncing or creating a schedule around your cycle is you not subduing your flesh or you falling into the desires of your flesh. I'm of the belief that how you treat your body is just as important as how you treat your spirit. Just like you will go and work out, just like you're eating right, just like you're reading your Bible and you're praying every day so that you can grow, grow, grow. Girl, pay attention to your cycle so that you are still effective in all of the areas of your life, even when the days that you have zero to no energy. I want you to see cycle syncing as an opportunity to steward your body and the work that you are called to well. Because again, girl, we only got 2 solid good weeks out of the month. Okay. You got to make those 2 weeks count. And you still have to show up in the weeks where you don't have any energy at all. So, how do you do that? And this is where I want to get into, first of all, giving name and context to each phase of the cycle. So, first phase is the menstruation phase. This is where, and this is like, we're bringing science into the mix. This is where estrogen and progesterone are at its lowest. So your energy is naturally at its lowest. You should not expect yourself to be full of energy, straight up bubbly, straight up ready to go when you are menstruating. Literally, scientifically, estrogen and progesterone are at their lowest. So you can expect your energy to naturally be at its lowest too. This is when your body is asking you to just chill and rest. And so the question that you should be asking yourself is, what are the low energy, restful things that I can possibly do that do not push my body too hard? Now, I will say again, This is very personalized to you and your energy. And this is why it's important to take a month or two to really track your cycle, to track how you are actually feeling, to really track your energy levels, to be able to decide, okay, what is the best system for me to build for myself? What is the best schedule to create for myself in order for you to be able to be disciplined and productive? Because it's so individualistic to you, but the cycles are the same. So I just want you to kind of, as I'm talking here, take the science of it, but still pair that with your own experiences and make the best decisions as far as like your schedule and the systems that you're building for yourself, the routines, habits, so on and so forth, based off of you. Okay. So that's menstruation. The second phase is the follicular phase. And this is when estrogen starts rising again. Okay. Like you're off your period, you got this boost in energy. Okay. And this is bringing a fresh wave of energy, focus, and motivation. And to be quite frank with you, girl, like I'm literally recording this video on my follicular phase. Like I'm currently in the follicular phase of my cycle. I have the energy to record all the content right now. Okay. Not only that, I spent the entire week deep cleaning my whole house, doing all the laundry, doing all of the types of things, okay? Because I just have the energy and the capacity to do so. That's just a little side note so that you know like how I'm stewarding my time during this particular phase. This is a great time to jump back into high energy routines and work. And something that's super interesting as is that this phase can last about 7 days. Your menstruation phase can last between 3 to 5 days. Again, it differs between people. This is why, again, pay attention to you. But the idea of each phase of the cycle is still baseline understanding, but pay attention to how you actually are feeling. Okay. Then from that phase, from follicular, you go into your ovulatory phase. Okay. This is when estrogen is at its peak. Okay. It peaks and testosterone spikes, making this your highest energy. Okay. You'll feel very confident. You're going to be very communicative and ready to take on anything. And I think what's really funny is that this lasts maybe 2 days. Girl, this lasts only about 2 days. Okay. So that's really interesting. So, so far, we can see that the parts of our phases where we have the most energy are during our follicular and our ovulatory or ovulation phase. The last phase is the luteal phase. And this is the phase where everything starts to dip, meaning progesterone rises and estrogen drops gradually, bringing down your energy. You're going to start to really feel it in your body. You're going to feel your energy slowly begin to deplete, especially as you get older. Like I think back to my teenage years and I don't remember it ever being such a roller coaster for me. But the older I've gotten, I am 29, I'm going to be 30 in November of this year. Like the older I've been getting, like the more and more I feel my energy dip. I feel when I'm about to get my cycle 10 days before it happens, like I'm already aware and I can feel it in my body. You'll start to feel more tired. You're going to feel like you want to be more to yourself. So you're going to start pulling away. You're not going to want to be in everybody's face like that. You're more emotionally sensitive at this time. And you have more brain fog happening, which is so crazy. Your body is asking you to start slowing down. And this can literally last about 11 days. And this is why I say that you want to pay attention to, again, you. At the baseline, we understand there's menstruation, there's the follicular, there's the ovulatory phase, and then there's the luteal phase. We understand that scientifically what's happening within each phase. However, the amount of time that it lasts, the symptoms that you might experience within each phase are going to be specific to you. Here it says that this can last about 11 days. For me, I'm looking between 9 to 10 days. And so the only reason that I know that is because I've been paying attention and tracking my cycle and tracking the energy levels that I have around that time. So I think that it is important to know the different phases of your cycle, but it is so much more important to pay attention and track what your body is telling you within each phase so that you can know how to go about building that routine, building up the habits, building up the systems, building up the schedule that supports your body within each phase. Okay. So the question then becomes, once you have taken a moment to understand, have this basic understanding about your cycle, what do you do with this information? Like I said from before, I think one of the very first things that you need to do is track it, because it's going to be very much personal to you, very different from what everybody else's experience is versus you. So I think that you should take 1 to 3 months to really be well intentioned about tracking your energy levels periodically, week by week throughout the month. Pay attention to patterns, pay attention to mood, pay attention to, again, energy, pay attention to maybe even what you're eating, pay attention to the things that you're avoiding. Just pay attention to yourself. Maybe even have a journal where you're jotting all of this information down. And then, based off of that data and information, you can now begin to make an informed decision on schedule and routine that you can build into your life. Now, when it comes to schedule and routine, I think it is best to always just keep it simple. Okay. Keep it as simple as possible. And I'm going to kind of share with you a little bit of what my routine looks like that helps me keep it real simple, keep it real cutesy, to where I'm not overwhelming myself with, oh, this is what I do on this day of this part of the week within this month of my cycle. I don't overbear myself like that, because that's just a little bit too much. Again, there are people who do a lot and they don't stick to it. And I'm just not trying to be that girl. So I know simple systems and simple routines are what work for me. Having that baseline understanding, I've tracked everything, so I know what works for me. And so I'm going to build a simple system and a routine that supports it. So I think that the best bet and the easiest way to support yourself throughout your, like, month to month, especially when you know you only got 2 good weeks out of the month, is for you to give yourself two types of schedules, two types of routines, two types of systems, all the things, right? I think you should have a high energy routine schedule and a low energy routine and or schedule. When I think of high energy routines, considering the science behind it all, it says that between your follicular and your ovulatory phase, you only have about 9 days of energy, which is insane, insane work. You have about 9 days of high energy. And during this phase, it is important to schedule in high energy type of tasks, responsibilities that you might have. Okay. And then on your low energy days, between the luteal and the menstrual, you got about 16 days to work with, honey. 16 days to work with. And so this is when you have your low energy. And again, this is going to be very specific to you. So make sure you do that tracking. That's probably going to be the most important part outside of having the schedule. Your schedule doesn't mean diddly squat. The routines don't mean anything if you're not basing them on the actual lived experience that you're having. And so once you have an idea of how many high energy days that you have and how many low energy days you have, you're going to build your schedule following these three simple rules, right? So the first thing you need to ask yourself is, okay, what are the high energy tasks that I have? What are the high energy things that I have to do? What are the high energy responsibilities and things that I have to do on a week to week basis, on a day to day basis, or whatever the case may be? The second thing that you want to ask yourself is, what are some of the low energy tasks? What are some of the things that don't require that much energy from me that I am still responsible for? And then the third and final question that you should ask yourself is, what tasks do you have to get done no matter what the energy level is? And how can you approach it with high or low effort? So again, you have your high energy things, you have your low energy things, and you just have responsibilities that you got to do regardless if you got the energy for it or not. So how can you approach it in a high energy way or a low energy way? So I'm going to give you a couple of examples of some of the responsibilities that I have in my life right now. As you know, my goal is to become a full-time content creator by the end of 2026. And my focus is specifically on YouTube and, as a supporting platform, Substack, to grow and build the community and things of that sort. And so for me, when it comes to content creation, the high energy task when it comes to content is going to be actually filming the content, filming, sitting down, putting my energy out there, setting up everything, that is what takes the most energy out of me. So that would be the task that I would assign to high energy days. Whereas when it comes to like low energy stuff, scripting is a low energy effort because I could do that literally anywhere. I could do it in my phone. I could do it in my notebook. I could do it in my Notion. I could do it on the couch. I could do it in the bed. I could do it laying down right before I'm about to go to sleep. I could do it during my like that doesn't require for me to be sitting at my set with my mic on, camera on, ready to go. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't require me to be ready to go. Another part of content creation that doesn't require that much of my energy is editing. Another part that doesn't require a lot of energy is the uploading and scheduling of my content. Writing my Substack doesn't require me to have a bunch of energy. And so all of those things would fall under the low energy task. And so for me, if I only have high energy for about 9 to 10 days of the month, I need to make sure that I am filming content during those 9 to 10 days of the month when I have my high energy. But that also means during my low energy, I need to be mindful of how scripting my content. I need to be editing my content. Once my content is filmed, this is my season to edit and write. I can be actively involved and still productive and disciplined in those low energies because I'm doing low energy stuff. So that's how I kind of like approach content creation and things like that. Another area of my life that I'm responsible for is just managing my household. My husband is in the military. He's working a lot of the time. He's literally about to go into the field. So that man is not even going to be home. You know, there are so many different things that he has to do when it comes to work. And so because I'm a stay-at-home wife, I don't work a full 9 to 5 job. I'm in school full time and I'm doing my content creation thing. I naturally have the energy and the capacity to just be managing the household and things like that. And so there are different things when it comes to household management that I need to take into consideration, like cooking and cleaning, both of which are high energy things. The cooking specifically can fall under question number 3 because this is something that I have to do no matter what my energy level is. Like, it don't matter what my energy level is. I'm the one who's doing most of the cooking. And so, how do I go about cooking when I have low energy? And it's so interesting. For me, I have found on my high energy days, this is when I cook short bursts of food. And let me explain. This is when I cook my steaks because I know that the steak may last a day or two. This is when I cook the small things, things that don't last a long time. But around my period, oh, I'm going to cook one good meal that's going to carry us for a little minute so that I'm not having to be up in the kitchen. I'm not responsible for breakfast. I'm not responsible for lunch. I cook this one solid meal and my husband is able to, he does his thing throughout that the rest of the time. At that point, I'm on bed rest. He's making fancy. He's doing all of the things to make sure that I'm feeling okay and stuff like that. And I'm chilling. But when I'm on my little high energy, this is when I do a lot more cooking. And there's not a lot of leftovers that are happening and things like that, unless it's like a leftover for lunch and or like a 2 days worth of food. But the whole point that I'm making here when it comes to making this decision is that the things that I'm responsible for, the things that I know I need to get done and do, I am very strategic about the way that I approach it because I understand that I have different energy levels. Girl, if I want to be a good steward of everything that the Lord has given me, I need to be paying attention to those things so that I'm not suffering in the process and I'm creating discontentment within myself, irritation within myself. I'm fed up with my husband. I'm fed up with everybody. I'm fed up with all the things. And I'm not being a diligent steward of what the Lord has given me, which is super duper important to me. That's with food. When it comes to cleaning, girl, like I said, follicular phase is when I do a deep cleaning of the house. Like I go in and do deep cleaning. And then once I have my like week of deep cleaning, for the rest of the time, I do maintenance. Okay. I maintain the laundry. I maintain the floors. I maintain the dishes. I maintain certain areas and stuff like that because it's just maintenance and stuff like that. If I do a good solid cleaning once a month, I can maintain throughout it. And then on my period, I ain't got to do nothing at all. I'm not doing anything at all because for the most part, everything is moving and grooving the way that it is supposed to. And so I share all of this to share like when you are called to certain areas in life, you have responsibilities, right? For me, I'm a student full time, going to Bible school. I am a wife. I am the primary person who's managing the household and I'm pursuing this content creation thing. In order for me to be able to manage all of these things, I need to pay attention to my energy levels. I would be having such a miserable time in trying to do all of the things if I wasn't scheduling my life and my routines and the things that I needed to get done around my cycle. That's just the reality of it. And anybody who tells you any different, they're not being honest with you. And there is some level of like discontentment and just discomfort that they're experiencing because they're trying to push through when they don't have the energy to push through certain things. And so I think it is so important, it's so crucial that you pay attention to your cycle so that you could build a schedule and routine into your life that makes sense for you, girl. So I gave you the example of how I'm managing my content. I gave you the example of how I manage my home and things like that. But I think it's important for you to remember that this is going to look different depending on the responsibilities that you have. So it might not be content creation for you. You might be a stay at home mom and you have your littles that you have to take care of. You might just be a single girl who's just taking care of herself. So there's a different level of capacity that you have altogether. Like, make sure that you're taking into consideration your season, your responsibilities, and the way that your energy is actually fluctuating week to week. Okay. I think that that is so crucial and so important. As call girls, we are called to so many different things in this life. There are so many different facets that we have, so many different roles that we have, so many different responsibilities that we have been called to, that God has entrusted to us to take care of and steward well. And we want to do those things well because at the end of the day, I believe as call girls, our greatest desire is to hear, well done, my good and faithful servant. We just want to be girls who please the Lord with all that we do in our lives. That is our greatest desire. And I think that taking your energy levels into consideration, incorporating cycle syncing into your life, into your routines, into your habits, into the systems, into the schedules of your life is a surefire way to ensure that you are stewarding your whole life well. So if you haven't done so already, let's do a quick checklist, girl. First of all, get some basic understanding, scientific understanding about cycle syncing, right? There's a spiritual side where they're doing a lot, okay? You don't want to do too much with that one. But get into the scientific side of things and get some basic understanding about what cycle syncing is and what it means and how your body is naturally operating between each phase of the cycle. Once you have that baseline understanding, I think it is so important for you to track yourself, give yourself a good 30 to 90 days, 1 to 3 months, where you are paying attention to the way that your energy is going up and down. What is your emotions like? What is your mood like? What changes? What are some of the things that you're doing around certain phases that are not beneficial to that phase? Just pay attention to the little details and take note of those things. Once you have the data that you need, then you can begin to make informed decisions on the schedule, the systems, the routines that you need, both high and low energy schedules and routines to support you within all of the responsibilities that you have. And I also want to add a caveat here is to just experiment with this, like experiment with the schedules and the routines. Because you might think, okay, this is going to be a surefire way for me to do this, but you don't have to lock yourself into this routine or this system or this theme. Like you can be flexible with yourself. You can change it around, test, experiment to see what actually works for you so that you can become an even better steward of all of the responsibilities that the Lord has given you. So with that said, I hope that this video was helpful for you and that it encouraged you, maybe it taught you a thing or two about being consistent in your calling, being consistent with the responsibilities that you've been given, and like being a good steward of those things, even when it comes down to being a woman who only has 2 good weeks out of the month to really get anything done for real. And so hopefully this encourages you to be more mindful about your body, it being a temple to the Holy Spirit, that it deserves to be honored as well, and that you should steward it well. Okay. Get into your cycle syncing bag, girl. With that said, I love you with the love of Jesus, and I hope to see you in our next episode.